of the previous fight. Because this team is hilarious. There isn't a water mage in sight, even though this is the water magic fight. Well, Onion Knight could be a water mage with his USB 3. But I don't have his USB 3, so he's just you know, his usual onionness with the magical USB. I don't, and my chain is the physical chain, because Titus is a fair and balanced character, and his Generation 1 chain is still powerful enough to sub-30 5-star Magicite off type. And the return of Power Chain. And I use Power Chain in this fight for a lot of the same reasons that I used in the last fight. We're not skipping a 50,000 heal, but I am... This fight is so confusing when it comes to quick casting. I am abusing quick cast manipulation. Okay. Let's end the poll. 9 votes to 1. First up, we have Eiko. She does exactly the same thing that she did in the previous fight. With Lionheart Lionheart is criminally underrated as a record materia, by the way. As her record materia, and instead of doing Shelga for the physical fight, she does Protecta for the magical fight. Because that theme stays constant throughout a lot of the 5-star Magicites is against mages, most of the bosses mostly do physical damage, and against physical characters, the boss mostly does magical damage. You'll notice that usually your squishiest character is your healer. I do not have a major fire resist on Eiko because it would screw up her trancing. I want her to trance on a certain turn, and if she has a major fire resist on, she doesn't do that. And same thing with Vivi. Vivi is the squishiest character on the scene, and if I had major fire resist on him, then he wouldn't trance on the turn that I want him to. So that was Eiko. Now we got Titus. Curiously, the exact same thing that he was wearing in the last fight, with a ranged weapon. I don't want him in the front row, so I might as well put a ranged weapon on him for the increased Sapphire Blitz damage, which isn't much, but can be something. Can be something. You'll see. Power Chain, and the Power Chain is so I can use that on first turn, and then use the chain when at a specific time on second turn, so I can manipulate cast times to allow Vivi to fast cast out his USB on turn 4. It's exactly the same thing as Bartz and Yuffie in the Phoenix fight. Oh, no. Sorry. That's, it's actually not Titus. It's for Alphino. Titus affects Alphino. What I do, and that's exactly what I do. I just, because Alphino's first Soul Break on 4th turn is not a magically damaging Soul Break. It means it does not gain any benefit from Onion Knight's USB, because it's Onion Knight's USB gives magical quick cast 3 to everybody on the party. So that will not increase the cast speed of what Alphino does on 4th turn, which is cast Deployment Tactics, the best Super Soul Break of all time. It's not really, but it's close. And the thing that I was talking about with Vivi is Vivi capitalizes on Onion Knight. And you'll see that the party order here is more important than it was in the previous fight. Everyone's actually placed in a specific spot for a reason, because Onion Knight's USB is going to be instantaneous since I have his OMR. So I've got Vivi before Onion Knight, and I have Alphino after. There's a reason for that, because Alphino's first 3 turns are going to be magically damaging turns. And on the 4th turn, that's when he uses a Super Soul Break. So I want Alphino after Onion Knight, so all 3 of those turns benefit from that quick casting. I have Vivi before Onion Knight for a reason, because I want Vivi to start his first cast before Onion Knight casts his USB. Because so Vivi casts his Soul Break on 4th turn, gets the benefit of that quick cast. So he, on 1st turn, slow casts. Then on 2nd, 3rd, and 4th turn, he fast casts. And that's some of the complicated quick cast manipulation on this team. We do it again later in the fight because I recast both Onion Knight's USB and the Water Chain, giving us more quick casts to deal with. And I actually put this video together in a hurry. I'm not sure if I did it correctly, but I'll talk about what I would have done ideally when we get there. You also have Maria's USB. Maria only has one USB, but I know what you're talking about. Can you use it like Vivi? Yes, you can. She won't be as good as Vivi, but she still can ability double Magica and will be effective. More effective with a chain like Riku or Ostrago, of course, because they're Generation 2. But she will still be able to deal a lot of damage. Vivi's just better. That's all. They both work. Vivi's just better. And Palom is also just better. Anything else with the first quick cast manipulation? No. Okay, so going on to Vivi, I have my MVP, one of my 500 gem BSB selections was Gogo's BSB, and it was for this specific reason. I selected Gogo's BSB because it's the only water weapon in the game for mages. And without it, I would really have to dig deep in improving the little things everywhere on this party if I wanted to even think about Sub30, because that 20% extra damage on Vivi is really, really important. So, Gogo's BSB. Awesome stat stick if you've got it. You see Vivi's abilities are Vortex and Chain Watershed. This is kind of important because on my Behemoth King run, I don't run it like this. I ran Meltdown on Onion Knight, and I used Chain Stonega and Chain Stoneja on Maria. I am required in this fight to use Vortex on Vivi because he needs to spend the first 3 turns of the fight casting 6-star abilities, or he needs to, on the first 3 turns of the fight, he needs to at least cast 1 6-star ability. So what happens if I have him with Chain Waterga and Chain Waterja? Do I use 2 Chain Watergas and a Chain Waterja? Well, that's a bad thing when you got an ability doubler, because that just removed one of your Chain Waterja turns later on in the fight. And it was actually worth putting Vortex on Vivi, so he could have those 4 Chain Watershed turns. My Chain Watershed is at R4, my Vortex is at R4. So he could have those 4 Chain Watershed turns instead of Onion Knight using Vortex for his stronger attacks. The reason why I prefer to do that is because Onion Knight would get more utilization out of Vortex than Vivi does. It's just that much. It's just that important that Vivi gets more Soul Break points from using Vortex. That I'm okay with Onion Knight kind of just being a hanger-on here. He doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but he does contribute to the chain a lot. And no, he does do okay damage. It just looks it looks weak compared to Vivi. Nothing much to talk about with Vivi. 30% increased damage with rods. Ultimisia's level 99 RM on Vivi. I rely on all the quick cast provided by the rest of the party, so I don't put Thunder God mode on him because he just doesn't do enough damage if he has Thunder God mode on him. Because we're only using a Generation 1 chain and no imperils. Onion Knight, don't have a water weapon for him, unfortunately. I gotta put that one on VV. So he just uses a high magic weapon, water armor, chain water gut, as I said. It's not necessary that he generates a ton of soul break points in this fight like he needed to in Behemoth King. In Behemoth King, he was just entrusting every other turn to Aphmau, and that was the fuel that made the party work. Onion Knight doesn't need all those soul break points here. He even entrusts once to Alphino at the start of the fight. A 0 Wrath Entrust is his third turn. So first turn is USB, second turn Wall, third turn 0 Wrath Entrust. That's all Alphino needs for the rest of the fight. So it's not... That's one of the things that makes the Vortex on VV kind of tenable, is because Onion Knight doesn't actually have to generate all that many soul break points here. There's no one that can use a ton of soul break points here. Eiko keeps the party alive by herself with Lionheart. She doesn't need any entrusts. It's a big difference from the 7 or 8 USBs that she has to do in Phoenix. And Alphino doesn't have any water USBs or any water soul breaks that he wants to spam, and Vivi certainly doesn't either. He wants to use his USB once and then never touch it again, because it does very, very little damage because it's a fire and non-elemental damage soul break. Well, yeah, that's Onion Knight. Alphino. Alphino is the funny guy. I love Alphino. He's my beautiful son. He contributed to the Sub30 in Behemoth King, and he contributes heavily to the Sub30 in Belias. And this is using a combination of 2 of his multi-elemental soul breaks. The first one being Deployment Tactics is Super Soul Break, which is just awesome. Especially on fights like Belias, whose Rage mode makes them take more damage as well as deal more damage. So you'll see at one point in the fight, the boss just deals 50,000 damage to itself in a turn, even though it's not an elemental Radiant Shield. It's just plain old Radiant Shield. But the damage is increased, and the boss just hits himself for 50,000 damage. It as well as providing a magic buff to the party, which 2 different people... Alphino does a lot of damage with his summons. He doesn't really need the second magic buff. And then after he gets Deployment Tactics up, he uses his other soul break, which is his USB, which I say is multi-elemental, because it may give him End Wind, but that's a small component of it. The 2 larger ones are multi-elemental, and that is a 30% rank boost. I have a rank 5 Ogopogo on Alphino. So he gets a 30% damage boost from that. It's not as good as an element, but it's pretty damn close. And when you're only hitting 3 times with a really high multiplier, 3 hits, it's a really powerful ability, as you'll see. Right, I guess earlier when I said Gogo's BSB added a lot of damage to this fight, one of the things that I could do to make this team a lot better and to deal a lot more damage would be to use Lunar Leviathan on Alphino, as well as Ogopogo, instead of what I'm going to be talking about in a second. So the other component to Alphino's USB that is multi-elemental is his finisher. When the USB status, after 15 seconds of his USB being active, expires, he does a finisher that does 5 hits for a percentage of the amount of damage that he did while the USB was active. So because that damage is based upon what you did when the USB was active, that means the damage is essentially water damage. It is based on the stuff that you're doing, which is Ogopogo. And that applied in the Behemoth King fight when I was using Titan. That was basically earth damage. It was buffed up by the earth damage that he did. So that's Alphino's USB. I do not cast his USB by 15 seconds in this fight, So if I want it to be a 30-second fight, there's another way you can trigger the finisher, and that's by using his USB a second time. If you use it a second time, it kills the previous status, triggering the finisher, and gives him a new USB status. So that's another way you can get the finisher. And what I was talking about, using Lunar Leviathan instead of the other ability you see on Alphino, which is the true star of this fight, is that that Ultima on Alphino. This run is impossible. I promise you this run is impossible without Ultima. I use Ultima because it is, I don't have any other water abilities to add to Alphino. And it's non-elemental, so it's going to deal the most damage, and it's 6-star. So it generates more soul break points than a 5-star, like Bahamut. Which would be better with Alphino because he's very summoning based. He gets a lot of summoning increased damage, so you'd prefer to use a summon. So I would prefer to use Bahamut, but since that doesn't generate enough soul break points, I need to use a 6-star instead. So I use Ultima. I use it twice at the start of the fight, before the chain goes active, so it's not like I lose anything. Ideally, obviously, I'd rather be using Lunar Leviathan, but what I was trying to do when I did this fight was say, do I really need to spend the rubies on Lunar Leviathan, or can I sub-30 this fight without it? It turns out I can. So I never made Lunar Leviathan, plus it's a lot funnier to use Ultima in a fight where it does not belong at all. Could have just made an R1 Chain Water Gun, but screw that. That's for weaklings. Ultima is the best ability in the game. I won't accept any other answer. And the reason why you have to do this is because summon hones suck. Ogopoko is 6 uses at R5. I use all 6 uses. So I need something in that other slot. Because obviously, using another Ogopoko to generate soul break points would obviously be better than Ultima. And Alphino uses Thunder God mode here, because if he doesn't, then I can't manipulate the quick casts, as you'll see, and I wouldn't be able to quick cast out his deployment tactics. His deployment tactics would not be cast before a very important turn. I'll show you when that comes up. So the Thunder God mode is actually or essential, and it's okay. Because summons are high multiplier, small amount of hits. So if I gave him a damage materia, it wouldn't do anything anyway. Well, it would do a little bit because there's some hits that don't cap, but almost all of his summon attacks cap. And that's with Thunder God mode. What's the point of adding 30% damage on capped attacks? Nothing. The best record materia I could give him other than Thunder God mode would be Garnet's RM, which is 20% chance to dual cast summons. So he'd have a chance to triple cast, or a better chance per turn to dual cast, which is nice. But I need the Thunder God mode to get off his deployment tactics on the proper turn. Ooh. And let's do what I did for the Phoenix commentary and talk about the Magicite. Well, I don't have to talk about the Magicite. Well, yeah, I do, because people may be watching this video, but not the other one. There we go. Again, Geoskyno is not going to be the main here. I'm not going to load up a new party just to show the difference. It's going to be Fanfrit instead, because he's the magical guy. And this is my typical Magicite team at the moment, which is Empower Magicite, plus Dampen Magicite, 2 Evrays, and a wild card slot where I can put, whatever I want. It turns out for both fights, the best thing that I can put in is an Octomammoth. He's obviously better on a magical team than he was on a physical team, because not only are the Empower 15 and the Health Boon 5 useful, but the Magic Boon level 15 is also useful. Also, instead of the Precise Strikes Evray, on the Magical team, I use the Magic Boon Evray instead. So I use my Evrays to customize the passives on my team. That's why I have 4 Evrays to make sure that, you know, they're suited for what's going on. So that gives me 2 Magic Boon 15s. The double Blade Wards definitely are useful here, where the well, actually Belias does have a powerful magic attack, so the Spell Ward and the Resistance Boon are both welcome here, where the Blade Wards aren't that welcome against Phoenix. So this is actually a very potent Magicite deck versus Belias. Hello. Alright, before I get started, anyone have any questions about the team comp? Shoot. E-Daddy. Or anybody else. Is it possible to do without a chain? I don't know, I haven't tried. You would have to run a different type of party. It's a good question, but it doesn't have much to do with this commentary. Rather than get damage increase from the chain, you would probably need to get damage increase from the boss's rage mode. And in order to fight against this boss during its rage mode, you'd have to do some different stuff, which is don't use a 5-star Magicite as your main, so you don't ever break the boss's rage mode. I'd want to use Kraken instead as my primary to imperil the boss. And then probably, I wonder if I could double heal, or maybe single heal with Entrusts, with Last Stand, with Kamari's USB. I think it probably could be sub-30able. Why not Major Resist on Titus? It's a good question. There's really no reason for him to have plus 10 attack. Doesn't do anything. You'll see, he doesn't do any damage. Yes, I definitely would. I would definitely use Drago's Chain. I could totally live without the 2 charges of Quick Cast for that stronger chain. I'd just find other ways. I think if I had Strago's Chain, because it's so much more powerful, I'd put Thunder God mode on Vivi, and then just win. I think I'd just win. Because Vivi, even casting at 33, you know, or 66% increased cast speed every single turn, would probably still cap. Dual and triple casting. You just annihilate the boss. The RM on Vivi is Ultimisia's 30% increased BLK damage with rods. He has a rod equipped. Alright. Gonna get started with the fight. First turn is gonna be a very typical healer thing. With Protecka. So Titus is much faster than Onion Knight. So he goes first, and like I said, or talked about when I was talking about the turn order thing, because Titus goes first, that's why I have Vivi, Onion Knight, and Alphino in the array that there are, because I want to manipulate the quick casts. The problem is Vivi's really slow. He's so slow, and Titus is so fast that if I spam click Titus's power chain, it actually skips Vivi's turn to Onion Knight's, which makes the start of this fight a little bit frustrating, so I have to very, very, very slightly delay my first action on Titus, so I don't skip Vivi, because I need Vivi to go before Onion Knight. So Vivi started his cast time, so the next cast will benefit from the first charge of Power Chain. Ultima! Oh yeah, 5,000 damage. But the important part is the Soul Breaker. So, Vivi's casting Vortex here for, again, the Soul Break points. Now, you see the ATB on Alphino and Titus. This is what the first part of what Thunder God on Alphino provides me, is now he'll be able to Ultima again before the chain goes off instantly. And this plays into why I'm using Power Chain here, is because I purposely want to delay Titus's chain here, because I want to make sure that it goes off after Alphino's second action. So Alphino's third and fourth actions are quick casted. Is it that important? Because he's got Thunder God mode on? No. But it still helps. Nice damage, Titus. And we see the last of Ultima in this fight. And like I said, with Onion Knight, I do a 0 Wrath and Trust to Alphino. And just like I did in Phoenix, you saw me target a Kirada onto Titus. There's a very similar reason, but not quite the same. Because I have 2 Trancers on this team, I do not want this Kirada to target a Trancer, because the next turn, both of their Trances will trigger automatically. And it's actually gonna harken back to the Famfrit fight, where the boss does more damage at one point in the fight to the second, third, and the fourth slots. So by targeting a heal onto Titus this turn, relying on the trance to heal Vivi next turn, and then trance casting a Kirada on Eiko's next turn, I heal the second, the third, and the fourth slots, making them resistant to the boss's big attack. And this is important because the boss uses a plus 50% attack buff that I choose not to get rid of. I choose not to get rid of it because if I'm able to heal, which I can with Eiko just with Lionheart, I would rather take more damage in this fight than less, because I'm going to have Radiant Shield active. So the 50% attack buff on the boss helps me more than it hinders me. It's 5,000 damage per Sapphire Blitz. See the 2 trances activate. We have full health on Titus and Onion Knight. Now we have full health on the second, third, and the fourth. Deployment Tactics does not get up by the boss's next damaging action if I am not using Thunder God. But now it is up early. There's the 50% attack buff the boss gives himself. I still have a quick cast active on Onion Knight because in the start of the fight I used a vortex before I got the 3 charges of quick cast. So you see Vivi's USB go up really quickly. See, the boss is in rage mode right now. That's why Sapphire Blitz does a lot more damage. Eiko heals this fight so well by herself that she has time to cast my Magicite, which she does at ×2 cast speed because of her awesome transmute. That hit the second, the third, and the fourth members of the team. And because I manipulated the trance mode on Vivi and 2 Kiratas on the second and the fourth members, they were able to survive. This is what allows, one of the very many things that allows Eiko to heal this fight by herself. Now I quickly recast Titus's chain here. And you see, Ogopogo does pretty fair amount of damage, even without much help. The reason why, there's 2 reasons why I cast this chain here. And I did talk about this on the previous commentary, is that I do want to dodge the turn 5 Berserk, because taking Alphino and Eiko out of the fight, if the turn 5 Berserk on Belias' second phase goes off, just kills the run. And it may seem counterproductive to recast the chain. I've already got it at 54. The reason why is because the quick casts allow me to get that off. And I stack up the chain so quickly. And what I do is I chain the quick casts. Because Onion Knight doesn't entrust anyone beyond that little one in the start of the fight, what Onion Knight gets to do is on the second charge of quick cast that's provided by Titus here, he gets to quick cast out another USB, providing 3 more charges of magical quick cast to Vivi, himself, and Alphino. And it's that quick cast manipulation that allows me to speed through the second phase. And by putting the chain up again this early, this is very early, at the end of the fight, everybody's doing a lot more damage, and I need that to get through the end, because the end is more damage than Eiko can handle if it lasts for too long. And now with Eiko and the adventures of Eiko solo healing the fight, you see Eiko use Kirata yet again, even though she does have a USB active. The reason why is Famfrit is actually really useful here. That Fire Stone Skin is awesome. Because it allows me to survive. No one takes any damage from the next attack. You see, Alphino obviously needs that. And the attack after the next attack hits slots 1 and slots 5. So I don't need her to have her USB active, even though 2, 3, and 4 are heavily damaged. Because this Kirata is going to full heal Alphino. Then 1 and 5 are going to take a lot of damage from the next attack. It's the Pain Flare. It's pretty much this boss's signature attack. I think it ends a lot of people's runs. But it lines everything up perfectly because they take heavy damage, which makes everyone have heavy damage on them, which makes it a perfect time to then use Eiko's USB next turn. Vivi is in ability double mode at the moment. Why do I use Vortex instead of Chain Waterja? Because it's very early on in the chain, so Chain Waterja is going to do about the same amount of damage as Vortex. They have very, very similar multipliers. So the only benefit to casting Chain Waterja is the extra hit, the extra 1% chain that you add to your party's damage output. It's not worth it. It's actually a better idea at this point to use a Vortex on the first action of the new chain, because say you reverse that. Say I use 4 turns of Chain Waterja right now. That means that the fifth action Vivi would make, because his Chain Waterjas are gone, would be a Vortex, which would be an easy cap. That's a loss of damage output. Capping damage is basically a loss in damage output. So what we're doing here is making sure that the 5th action in these 5 turns that Vivi's going to make right now are none of them cap, so I don't lose any damage. Or rather, if I do cap on the 5th action, it's with a Chain Waterja, and if I'm capping with Chain Waterja, that's 20,000 more damage than Vortex does. Because Vortex is limited by hit number. So you see the Savage Pain Flare on 1 and 5. Heavily damages 1 and 5. Now everybody's damaged. Now it is time to USB. Again, just trying to get the most out of everybody's health bars before resorting to Medica. And it takes a lot of trial and error. I think a lot of people probably get frustrated by a lot of my trial and error on other streams because it's a slow process, but it pays off. You see, Alphino's USB is unfortunately wind and, well, it'll probably be fortunate on other elements, but it's wind and dark damage, and 5-star Magicites null all damage other than the ones that they're vulnerable to. So his USB entry does 0 damage. And you may think, well, that's kind of a waste of a turn, isn't it? No, because Ogopogo has so little uses on it that that by spending a turn and casting the USB, which gives me extra damage, is worth using to extend the amount of hones that I have on Alpha now. And because we got that quick cast from Tidus's chain, we now are able to quick cast and remove a lot of that horrific cast time from Onion Knight's USB. Chain Waterja is capping in the moment because or close to capping, because the boss is in rage mode. Which is perfect, because next turn the boss will be out of rage. It might be. And by that time, the chain will be so high that he's going to cap anyway. Ogopogo capping as usual, because Ogopogo does that. Fortunately, it's only 30,000 damage. Now, Onion Knight has done his job. He can chain Waterga for now and until the rest of the fight. And because I optimized Eiko's healing over the course of the fight and was able to use her USB last turn, I was able to get everybody at maximum HP for that beautiful attack, which does about 50,000 damage to the boss because he is in rage mode and I have Radiant Shield. Heal everybody up and basically, when you have Radiant Shield active, health is a resource. It's a source of damage, and having everyone healed like this means that in order for the boss to wipe me, the boss needs to do a lot of damage to itself to get there. Now this is without rage mode. Titus is doing 10,000 damage a turn. It's not insignificant. Here's me choosing to cast a Kurata onto Vivi, because the more health someone has on a team with Evraze on it, the more damage they deal. So I'm going to heal my best damage dealer so he can deal the most damage. It's actually unnecessary. That was a mistake. I should have done that on Onion Knight, because Vivi's going to cap no matter what at this point. The chain is at 99, at 23 seconds into the fight. So I should have put that on Onion Knight, because he can use the extra damage, obviously. And you'll see that this turn. Vivi's going to be at 1% health, and he's still going to cap. It's 15,000 damage. Now, I did make errors in the latter part of this fight. One thing that I could and probably should do is target that heal instead of onto Vivi. Put it on Alphino instead, because Alphino is actually going to die before he gets to recast his USB here. I made this like right before the stream, so I was like, okay, I'm not fishing for another run for a video. I'll just explain the mistakes that I made instead. So I could have either put that extra heal on Onion Knight for more damage output on the boss, or put that heal onto Alphino so he could not die before he gets his finisher. And you'll see the run gets pretty close because of the mistakes that I made. The boss, in its third phase, puts Greater Barrier up, which is Shulga, which would reduce your damage output considerably at one point, but the turn order has been manipulated to the point where this turn, the boss actually goes into rage mode. Which makes the boss take more damage, so even though I'm dealing less, I'm also dealing more. It's a net loss, but not by that much. Not by much. So there's another Pain Flare. I don't care if Eiko dies at 28.5 seconds in the fight, but I do care that Alphino dies with that amount of cast time on his USB ready to go, because the finisher from the Dread Flare Bahamut would kill a boss. Instead, I have to rely on this at 29.96 seconds into the fight. Titus MVP. It shouldn't ever get to this point, but it did because I made mistakes. Luckily, the fight is good and tuned enough. Well, my party is tuned enough for the fight that I was able to overcome the mistakes. Because those two cast times for Vivi and Onion Knight would not get off. Again, I feel pretty good about all the descriptions I make. I think I missed anything that I wanted to talk about. Does anybody have any questions? That's my Belias Sub30 with 0 water mages. Vivi's awesome. I brought this up in Discord yesterday. That I'm happy that I have Vivi's USB, and that though I would very much have value in Palam's USB, if I had a choice between the two, because of Final Fantasy IV Torment, it would be very nice to have Palam's. I love having Vivi's USB for these Magicites because I underestimated how good the trance mode is, because that heal is so useful for healing a fight. And obviously you don't get that with Palam. How would I go about this fight without the chain? Without the chain, I would... Well, I would play it a lot like Behemoth King. Which would be... Radiant Shield as soon as possible. Never let the boss leave rage mode. I would use Kraken as my primary Magicite for the Water Imperil. And... likely, instead of Eiko and Titus, I would sub them out for Aphmau and Raijin for the instant cast and the last stand. Because the instant cast chaining that you do with Aphmau is beneficial on a Radiant Shield squad. Or it works with Alara too. Because, kind of like what I mentioned during the fight, your health is a damage output source. So the better healed you are, the better off your damage is, because every turn, if this boss stays in rage mode, it's gonna be the boss killing itself. So, the three potent quick cast healers, which would be Aphmau, Realm, and Alara, would be ideal to pair up with a last stand source, which I prefer using Raijin because he also provides instant cast. Would maybe allow me to win the fight. Realm would probably be the least useful because you don't want those stone skins lowering your damage output. It wouldn't matter on some turns because the boss would deal so much damage to you that the stone skin wouldn't matter. But I'd still think Alara is probably the best way to utilize your health pools against the boss. And Alphino would probably be dealing so much damage with his summons, and Lunar Leviathan, I'd probably have to go with that route. But it wouldn't matter if he didn't have a chain, he'd still be doing a ton of damage anyway. Because summons are quite powerful, even against single targets. Well, yeah, my suggestion does include Raijin for a reason. You are going to get one shot. But that's the point. You want to get one shot with that comp, the Radiant Shield comp. You want the boss dealing as many 50,000s to himself every single turn. So you pair up Alara or, Aphmau with a potent last stand and have the boss kill himself while you kill the boss. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get Alara's USB. I'm actually leaning towards not pulling on this USB Lucky. I am going to stream tomorrow, and I probably won't make a decision on pulling until stream time. Can't you avoid the Berserk? What do you mean? With this comp, they did avoid the Berserk. Were you talking about with if I didn't have a chain? I think the boss uses some physical attacks that would get absorbed by the physical blink, and that's a damage loss. So I would be wary of that. I think if I used a Radiant Shield comp, they would probably have a tough time avoiding the Berserk. No, I am using Radiant Shield. If I was using a chainless Radiant Shield. Because it would be gradual damage, and you might not be able to speed through the second phase. I don't know. I haven't tried. It'd be something worth exploring. Probably just have to suck it up and lose my two least useful members on the Berserk. Oh yeah, of course, Crazy Horse. But that's a different version of the fight. We were talking about purposely taking damage, which you need Last Stand for. Leaving the boss in rage mode, leaving the boss's power break buff up. If I had Alara's USB and this team, I would use Fam for it. I would use power break. Well, I know it with Last Stand, E-Daddy, but his Super Soul Break 2 also gives Power Blink, which is bad when you're trying to deal damage to the boss. Because power or Physical Blink stops the boss from killing himself. You lose damage. You want to take hits with that comp. Oh boy. Are you live? I feel like you're not hearing what I'm saying. You can't avoid the physical blink part of his Super Soul Break 2. I'm sure it will be fine for some compositions where you do want to avoid the damage, but if you're looking for the chainless Sub30 with the Radiant Shield comp, then no. Alright, gonna create a highlight of this. If anyone doesn't have anything else to say, this was actually a great Q&A. Thank you for participating so much in this one. Now I'm gonna get a drink, and then it's time for Genova. Precious Super Soul Break Medica in Last Stand, it actually sounds pretty decent. Of course, you lose the instant cast of Raijins, but the instant cast of Raijins might be wasted on a team with Alara anyway. The nice part about using Raijin is that you can it's a one-turn instant cast paired up with a one-turn instant cast of Aphmau. That's how I use them. But if you're using Raijin and Alara, you're probably going to have a lot of overlap between Alara's 2 turns of high quick cast and Raijin's 1 turn of instant cast. So maybe it would be better off using Prishes, because I believe there's a Medica attached to it. And the more health you have, the more damage you deal.